Here's a live look at Capitol Hill, where the president's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, is testifying for a third time this week. He arrived there just moments ago. Today's closed-door hearing comes after an explosive day of public testimony yesterday. Let's take a little listen here.
He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat. He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair, and to lie about it to his wife.
How long did you work in the White House?
I never worked in the White House.
And that's the point, isn't it, Mr. Cohen?
No, sir.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, sir.
You wanted to work in the White House.
No, sir.
You didn't get brought to the dance.
To be clear, Mr. Trump knew of and directed the Trump-Moscow negotiations throughout the campaign and lied about it.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. No one should ever listen to you and give you credibility.
How many times did Mr. Trump ask you to threaten an individual or entity on his behalf?
Quite a few times.
50 times?
More.
100 times?
More.
200 times?
More.
500 times?
Probably. I blindly followed his demands. My loyalty to Mr. Trump has cost me everything.
Meanwhile, President Trump is firing back at his former lawyer. During a news conference in Vietnam, he called yesterday's testimony a fake hearing.
Having it in the middle of this very important summit is really a terrible thing. He lied a lot, but it was very interesting because he didn't lie about one thing. He said no collusion with the Russian hoax. And I said, I wonder why he didn't just lie about that too, like he did about everything else.
But many Democrats appear to disagree with the president's assessment. That's no surprise. After the hearing, Nancy Cordes spoke to Congressman Elijah Cummings. He is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee.
Based on what you heard, do you believe that the president committed a crime while in office?
Based on what, looking at the checks and listening to Mr. Cohen, it appears that he did.
And we're joined now by Nancy Cordes on Capitol Hill alongside CBS News Washington correspondent Paula Reid at the White House. So, Nancy, we just heard in that soundbite Elijah Cummings saying to you he does believe the president committed crimes while in office. What are you hearing from other Democrats on that question?
Well, they certainly agree with him, and in fact, they believed that even before Michael Cohen testified, for the simple reason that Michael Cohen himself was convicted of violating campaign finance laws for those payments to Stormy Daniels, and we know that the president, of course, was involved. So it didn't necessarily take Cohen coming before Congress, bringing that check to convince a lot of Democrats. However, Cummings did go on to say that it isn't really up to him. Obviously, that's up to prosecutors, and that Cohen did leave them with a lot of other leads that they can follow here on Capitol Hill. And there's certainly a lot of other members of the Trump inner circle that they would like to hear from now that Cohen has testified. People like Alan Weisselberger, people like Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump. Whether or not they will actually be able to secure those people to testify is another matter. But they feel like that Cohen gave them a lot of breadcrumbs that they can chase from here.
So speaking of all those breadcrumbs, Paula, of all the accusations that you heard Cohen make against the president, which ones do you think will be the most troubling for him long term?
The president should be very concerned about the ongoing investigations going on by federal prosecutors in Manhattan. They are investigating a variety of alleged criminal conduct, and yesterday Cohen gave us more details about exactly what they're looking into. We knew that they were looking into these allegations of campaign finance violations related to those hush money payments paid to women ahead of the election. But yesterday, Cohen alleged that the president engaged in a conspiracy to cover up those campaign finance violations up and through the time that he was here in the White House. He also said that his last conversation with the president occurred shortly after his home and office was raided by the FBI, but he said he couldn't discuss what the two men spoke about because it's currently under investigation by those federal prosecutors in New York. He also said there are other currently undisclosed matters that they're also looking into. So it appears what the president's own Justice Department is up to in New York, those federal prosecutors, that whole probe is broadening, and that should be a significant concern for the president.
Nancy, let me ask you about this. The tactic from the Republicans yesterday during Michael Cohen's testimony seemed to be to completely look the other way when it came to the accusations that Mr. Cohen was making and to focus on Mr. Cohen himself. And I want to play a little bit of what New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey, had to say. Take a listen.
The interesting thing is that there hasn't been one Republican yet who's tried to defend the president on the substance. And I think that's something that should be concerning to the White House. Why are no Republicans standing up and defending the president on the substance? And that's either a failure of those Republicans on the Hill or a failure of the White House to have a unified strategy with them. They knew what was coming with Michael Cohen. And so I think it's going to, as the day goes on, it's going to get tired of hearing the attacks on Cohen's credibility. He's not a credible witness, but he does have corroboration on certain things. Where's the defense of the president?
You know, the only questioning that I saw, serious questioning of Michael Cohen, Nancy, and I could be wrong, you'll tell me, is Justin Amash of Michigan, who seemed to be sort of poking at the accusations that Michael Cohen was making. He seemed to be the only one, and I guess perhaps because of his district being in a special sort of case where it's a mix of Democrats and Republicans, he felt he had the bandwidth to do that.
Right, and even his questioning was kind of lukewarm. You know, he wasn't as hard on Cohen as most of the other Republicans, but he wasn't all that hard on the president either. The only Republican that I heard actually defending the president yesterday directly was Mark Meadows of North Carolina, and he wasn't defending the president on criminal grounds. He was just saying that the president, as far as he knew, wasn't a racist. So you're right that most Republicans don't think that it is very fruitful to try to argue that the president was in the right when he made structured payments to his lawyer to repay him for paying off a porn star. That's probably not a line of defense that's going to pay dividends for them. And Democrats, for their part, routinely acknowledged that Cohen is indeed a flawed witness, that he has lied, that he has been convicted not just for crimes that he committed out of loyalty to President Trump, but also crimes that had nothing to do with President Trump and falsifying his tax returns and all the rest. And they know that he is problematic. But what they argued is if you don't ever put problematic people on the stand, you'd never have made a mob conviction in history. I mean, this is the way it goes. Usually people who lie or cheat or steal are associated with other people who lie or cheat or steal, and you've got to get their testimony in order to get to the truth. What was so interesting about the Republicans who went after Cohen for being a liar is, you know, the president is well documented, frankly, as a liar as well, and is telling multiple mistruths. And yet they don't seem to believe that that's disqualifying, even though they believe that Cohen shouldn't be listened to because he's lied in the past.
So, Paula, Cohen is back on the Hill. He's testifying again. It's going to be closed-door testimony, though, so we won't find out, presumably, most of what he talks about, maybe some of it. What can we expect for today?
There are going to be a lot of follow-up questions about what was discussed yesterday, but one of the advantages lawmakers have in these behind closed doors hearings is they are able to probe a little bit deeper into the Russia investigation. They're able to get him to discuss more about what he is working on with the special counsel. He continues to cooperate with the special counsel investigation in addition to other Justice Department investigations. So I think you're going to see a lot of follow-ups on that. But there are other issues that if I was a lawmaker, I would want to follow up and try to see if I could get him to disclose what exactly was said between you and the president in your last conversation. Well, why would that be under federal investigation? And see if he would be willing to disclose any of these other matters that are currently the subject of federal investigations. It couldn't discuss that in open session, but see if you may be able to get some leads behind closed doors.
All right, Nancy, Paula, we thank you both.
You're welcome.